2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can all see the PowerPoint presentation, and thank you for joining us on our Power Hour. My name is Justin Sherwood. I'm the Managing Director of Seriun Limited, and I'm joined with us today with Andrew Brookfield, who's our Business Systems Consultant, and Jordan and Laura, who are behind the scenes. And Jordan will be answering any of your technical questions while we go through the presentation today. So if you could remember to put your name, if you use the Q&A panel by clicking on the question marks, this icon on your screen, you can submit your questions, and if you could put your name into the field there, that would be great, so we know who you are and we can get back to you if we need to provide more details on the question. So I just wanted to put a slide in to just give you a bit of a brief background of where we are as a managed service provider and where we've been and where we're going. So in January of this year, we implemented our Empower app that we've built internally. We've spent some years building it, and effectively it's a employee engagement tool to engage the team and to try and incentivize our team to on a KPI and a reward basis. We have the team can earn diamonds and experience points, and they can spend those diamonds within our Seriun shop, where we have everything from a KFC bucket to an experience, a trip for two to some exotic destination. We're currently in the process, well, we have been running some service improvement meetings every Friday. The service improvement team get together, and we've been doing that over Teams since lockdown began. And what we talk about is how we look at the business as a whole. So everything from technical service output to internal processes, how we can improve that, and we constantly try and improve our offering, and that's going really well. So in the future, probably the very short term, in the next few months, we're going to be making a move from what we operate internally on as a service level agreement, which is effectively whether a sort of traffic light system, whether a service is green, amber, or red, to more of an XLA or a customer experience level agreement. So what this means to you is that we're shifting our focus from our internal sort of lights on approach to more of how the end user at their desktop, interacting with their device on a daily basis, is experiencing that interaction with their IT. So that's some great, exciting news we'll provide more details as we go on with that. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about Power BI today, Power Automate, and Power Apps. So I'm just going to briefly run through the slide on the pricing of Power BI. It comes in 2 SKUs: the Power BI sort of free version, which is included with your Microsoft 365. With most Microsoft 365 SKUs or products, and the free version is a kind of a cut down or a limited version of the Pro. That you can create your own reports and consume them on your own, whereas the Pro version allows you to collaborate and publish your reports to the rest of the team and embed them on various things like SharePoint and so on and so forth. So it's an additional SKU that you'd have to purchase on top of your existing 365 product. So I'll hand you over to Andy, who will run through the Power Automate pricing.
Hi guys. So yeah, Power Automate. Now, again, Power Automate does have a sort of free version that you get as part of your 365 licensing, but there's very limited connectors that you can use with that. So you can use it for accessing like an Excel spreadsheet or your emails, but there are more premium connector versions of it. So you've got on here this per user plan, which gives you access to a larger array of connectors, which I'll show you in a moment. But also as well, there's the sort of higher end version of it as well, which allows you to do some of the robotic process automation with UI flows and things like that as well. If you can move on to the next one. And the other thing that we're looking at today as well is going to be a brief look at Power Apps and showing the kind of things that you can do with Power Apps. And again, there is a sort of free tier to it, but really you'd be wanting to look at the one of these two different license types for the different things that you'd be looking at. Okay. And this is some of the details of the differences between the types of license that you can get for Power Apps and what's included in each one of these. So whether you get some data as part of this common data service or not. Right, so moving on from there, I think the first thing to do is go through and show you Power Automate. So Power Automate is what was known as Microsoft Flow. It's had a rename recently, so if I do call it Flow at any point, please forgive me. I'm still sort of stuck with that, and the things in it are still called flows, so it's a bit strange. But the idea behind it is it allows you to sort of simplify any sort of regular business processes you've got where, say, you copy a file from one place to another, or you convert something from a Word document to a PDF, and you can automate these kind of processes and get things like notifications as well, so you can get an alert or an email when something happens. So what I'll do now is I'll just share my screen and go through sort of some examples of what that might look like in the, well, I say real world. These are all fictitious, but still. Well, actually, one of them isn't. So what we've got here is this is on a sort of demo tenant that I have of 365, and I've got a couple of flows set up here. So as an example, what we have is a flow that when a file is created in a SharePoint library, so if a file is created in this retail site in the documents folder, then this has been set up so that it will look at some of the details in that file and send me an email related to the content of that file. So I know that there's something that I need to look at or not. The kind of things that you can connect Flow up to are all under here. So this one's got one of the premium licenses assigned to it. So there's a lot of connectors available. And you have things like SharePoint libraries, like I've touched on. You can have it connected to your Twitter or your LinkedIn. So if someone mentions your business, then you could get yourself an email sent to you about that with a link to it. But you've also got all sorts of other things. So you've got SQL server connections. So if you've got an on-premise application and you wanted every time a sales order gets created over a certain value that someone is notified, or a line's added to an Excel spreadsheet, then you can make them kind of flows. Okay, so looking through that, and to try and make this a little bit easier for people to get started with, Microsoft have been quite generous really with it, and there are a number of templates available. So when you're very first looking at doing a flow, I would suggest you have a look through these templates. And these templates are some example sort of things that you can get started with. So you've got on here for every time I get an email, I want to save a copy of an attachment of that to a SharePoint document library, which might be something useful if you've got, say, a quotes app mailbox or something along the lines of that. And also as well, things like manager approval for files in a SharePoint library. Now, if you're looking at these as well, if we go to create, so the different kinds of things that can start a flow, you have a few different sort of things to instantiate it. You can either have an automated flow that can do things such as monitoring a SharePoint library. I keep using that as an example because it's a good one. But you can also have ones that are on a instant thing. So you can have a button that's on, say, your mobile, and you can press a button on that and it starts a set of actions out, whatever they may be. You can also have it on a schedule, so it can run every 5 minutes or so and do a job on a regular basis. And you can also have these other kinds of flows, which are fairly new. They've just come out of beta and they're referred to as a UI flow. And they're probably the most powerful part of the whole sort of system, which it allows you to record a set of steps for either a on-premise application or a web application and rerun them steps like automatically. You've got like a robotic process automation kind of thing for it, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. But they're really good, and you can also as well parameterize these as well. So in theory, if you've got like a mailbox where you receive a CSV file, then it's possible, quite complicated, but possible, to monitor that mailbox, take that CSV file from that email, and then strip the contents out of that, and then with a parameterized UI flow, enter the transaction in that CSV file into your ERP system, whether that be a on-premise legacy application in .NET, or if it's a modern sort of web front-ended ERP like Business Central or the likes. So if I just have a look at that. So if I have a look at the UI flows, here's one I made earlier. So what as an example of what you can do with these, I've put together a pair of flows really that are joined together. And we use a phone system called 3CX, which is a cloud-based phone system. And what they've done at the moment is they've locked down their API just because of some people using they've got different license versions. Long story short, there was no real way of making it so I could synchronize my Teams status if I'm set to away or do not disturb with the phone system. And I wanted to have a look at a way of making it so that if I'm set as away in Teams, it will automatically set my phone status to away as well. So what I've done is I've wrote a flow that runs on a schedule, and this runs every well, it's set to days at the moment while I was testing, but that could be set to 5 seconds if you wanted to. And what that'll do is this will connect into Microsoft's Graph API, which is basically the Microsoft Everything in 365 API, and it will look on there for my current status in Teams and then do some stuff with the things it gets back, and off that it will then, if my availability is away from Teams, it will run a UI flow that I recorded. So what I'll do is I will just quickly set my status to away instead of do not disturb on Teams and show you what that looks like. So at the minute, I think because I run this as a test, I'm set to away on my phone system here. So I'm going to say that I'm currently on a break, and I will now run this flow. And what that should do is look at Teams, and you can see on here that I'm away, and live demo, so fingers crossed, and it's failed. Brilliant. Okay, so because of the way that I'm doing this at the moment, there is a sort of key that's running behind the scenes that I need to refresh, and it seems to time out every time I want to show anybody. So what I'll do is just fill in the gap very, very quickly. So bear with me on this one. Won't be a sec. So if I quickly go like this, copy and put this into this. So again, this is for a demonstration example. There are ways of filling some of these things in a bit more rigorously so that you wouldn't have to do this every time, but still. So we'll go through that, run that, done. And what this should do is look at my status in Teams, and there you go. Look, mum, no hands. And what that's done is that's now opening up the admin console for our phone system, and using a UI flow that I recorded, it's now logging in onto our 3CX system. Now I have slowed this down quite a bit so you can see it walking through the steps, but you can have this run super duper quick, and it's finding me, going to my status, changing it from break to away, and then saving the change on there. Okay, and you can see if I look at this as well, I'm now currently set to away on the phone system as well. And that's all automated and can be run on a schedule. So where Teams, for example, does automatically detect that you're away from your desk, this will do that bit for me and set the phone to away automatically. Now, what I've also done with this as well, and this is part of the power of all of this lot as well, is with tying these two flows together, what that's allowed me to do is there's a mobile app as well available for Flow. Sorry, Power Automate. I said I'd get that wrong. And what you can do is you can install that app on your phone. And when I mentioned previously, you could have an instant call where you can do a button. Well, then buttons are available on my phone as well. So if for whatever reason I need to step away from my desk and forget to set my status as away, I can simply press this away button on my phone. Sorry for the flickering around my picture while I'm doing this, but still, and I've just pressed that button on my phone to set away, and what that should do is call that exact same flow that was happening previously, and again it's going to go through and run the steps and set my phone status to away. And as these things that are in there, so like the username and password, they're all sort of parameters that have been recorded as part of the flow to allow it to go off and do that as well. Okay. So in your business, you can probably imagine various scenarios where this might be useful for you, but it's quite a powerful feature that's available in there. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a few ideas of the kind of things you can do with it. And go back to Justin.
Sorry, am I correct in thinking that you can do this? You have to be logged into your machine, or
oh no, sorry. Yeah, I did mean to mention that as well. So as part of this, what I've done is there's two different ways that you can call a UI flow. You have an option of doing it in either what's referred to as attended or unintended mode. So what we've got on here, that is running as an attended mode, so you can see the steps, and obviously that works better in a demo sort of situation. But you can also have it set up so it would run in an unattended mode, say for example on a virtual machine somewhere or another that just does these steps behind the scenes without you watching them.
Thanks. So just flicking back to the presentation now, we'll move on to Power BI. Hopefully most of you on the webinar have heard of Power BI, but if you haven't, it's essentially a tool, a reporting tool, but it's different from your sort of traditional static reports, and it integrates with your data, and you can pull data or query data into the Power BI platform and perform various different charting and reporting services on that data. So the main driver for this is to create intelligence or insight into your business, so that you can make better decisions and access those reports from any device and anywhere. So I'll switch over to a Power BI demo, and I will just come out of the slideshow. And as you can see, I've got Power BI open on the screen. So this is the 2016 version of the product, which you can download. Jordan's going to put the link into the Q&A, so you can download this, and this is for sort of authoring or editing reports as a fully blown sort of Office application that you install onto your machine. There is obviously the web version, and we'll switch over to that in a minute. And you can still author reports on the web app, but this is kind of feature rich, and is recommended if you're the person within your organization kind of generating reports. So it's similar to your other Office applications. With the tab at the top, you have the visualizations on the right hand side, and probably most importantly, your fields on your data source. Now we connected to a data source. It's a Microsoft demo, and it's a fictitious skateboard company that manufactures skateboards. They're based in Chicago, and they have a number of stores around Chicago, and the team have kind of gone away and created a connection to the data. It can be quite tricky depending on what system you connect your data to. So the first thing that you would do when you creating new Power BI reports is you'd want to get data. So I'll just run through the various different connectors that you can get, and there are several. So in the free version, this is limited to a specific set, but in the pro version, you get all of the connectors, from the likes of Excel to a number of different database solutions out there, from SAP to SQL to Access to Oracle, etc., etc. There are certified connectors. You can get more information here. So what Microsoft say, if the connector is not certified by them, then they have no liability on the performance of the connector. But in general, you can even connect to a SharePoint library, a SharePoint list. You can connect to Exchange. Andy mentioned Dynamics Business Central earlier, and there are templates. So when you connect to Business Central, for example, and there are templates that you can use. That means that you don't have to sit there and create all the sort of curate the data connection. And out of the box, it's all set to go, and you can start building reports really easily. There's even a Google Analytics connector that you can connect to if you want to sort of slice and dice your analytics, your Google Analytics data. So with that, you'll notice that there's some calculated fields here in DAX. DAX is a language that Excel uses for a kind of its formulas and and it's worth, if you are in a power user of Excel, or you are in sort of a team that does analytics within your organization, it's worth going out and training up on DAX. So I wanted to just show you with this connection how sort of rapid it is to build a report. Then, we have done quite a few things beforehand, so it's not a true representation of starting from zero, but it'll just give you an idea of how powerful this product is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our store onto the canvas. We're then going to add some products to that, and we're going to switch that into a visualization. We'll probably put that into the a stack chart, and then once we've done that, we need to add the amount. So if we go into sales, and we'll put the amount in dollars onto that report. Now that's listed by product over the store axis. So I'm just going to swap that around quickly. If you just bear with me 1 second. So I'll take store out of there, move product up to there, and put store into the legend. So that gives us effectively our product SKU set over the stores that we have in a stacked column. So it's a simple chart. We can start to kind of create a filter. For example, if we wanted to filter by store, we could either click on here up, on this, and that would show us the distribution of the Contoso store and how those contribute across the product set. Or we could create a slicer or a filter on the right hand side here. So we could add, let's say, a store chart, and that's just by default put in the table view. So I can just switch that over to the filter or slicer chart or component, and that will allow us to now select the barber store and see the distribution of sales sales over that store. I could also multi-select and start to build up a bit of an insight as to how the products are selling over those 3 stores. I could then take it 1 step further and add another slicer, and let's say we wanted to put a product slicer on. So we would drop down our product, choose the product slicer, switch it to slicer mode, and then just relay that out so it's a little bit easier to read and understand. And then I could start saying, okay, we're interested in the OneDrive product, buy those stores, also Excel, maybe Power BI and PowerPoint boards. So, and you can see quite quickly that you can start to pivot on that data. Now, the whole purpose of this demo is to look at the returns. So we've been asked by the C-suite to we're in sales and marketing maybe, and we've come in and we want to present to them, and we want to understand what the sort of rate of returns are across our business. So just before we get into the second part of the demo, I'll just pop another chart on here. So let's go into a pre-designed a DAX analytics unit, and we will put units returned and units sold, and we'll change that into a donut visualization. So there you can see that across these products and stores, we're getting the units returned based on the total units sold within that set. So that's just a few minutes of building up some reports. Now I'm going to switch over to the team at Microsoft built this one, which is fairly whizzy. Now I think 3 people at Microsoft built this. I don't know how long it took them. I don't think it would have taken them that sort of too long, but this is kind of like an illustration of what your reports could look like, and you don't have to go to this level of detail, but it just showcases a number of new visualizations and analytic tools that Power BI has on their that has come out. So we're in the skateboard store. We've got this has been published to us as a C-suite. We can consume this on any device, on a mobile device, and when you're designing these reports, you can design them for both mobile, tablet, and sort of normal PC or Mac layout. And we're basically seeing the category breakdown, and Power BI is winning in sales. The top 3 performers are listed there, where we can quite easily see the worst performing is Flow. Maybe that's because we renamed the board to Automate or Power Automate. And if we hover over, this is the new tooltip. You can see we can get a tooltip of the board. Now, this has obviously been designed. You could put whatever you want in that tooltip. You could put further detail or whatever, but there we can see the unit price of the board. The button has been put on here, and it's just a kind of click through button or a link, and it just changes the visualization. It's fairly easy to do. And here we can see a more sort of detailed chart of the category. If I clicked on Word, for example, it's the panels would reflow. So this is showing us our just the Word product and how that's performing over the stores, etc. Here we can see the store breakdown. So the Farmer store is performing the best across the whole group, and we can obviously, Pyram might be needing some attention from training or something like that, and we could start to build a picture of how we're performing. We could also drill down into the map visualization. So this sort of shows us the distribution of sales, the net sales rather, across the Chicago area and across our stores. We could naturally click onto a specific store and see how that store is contributing to our net sales within that specific store. We could also use the polygon tool, for example, if we're only interested in understanding the sales in this region here. We could select those, and therefore it would multi-select those stores. The kind of third panel on our entry level on our entry point to the report is a Q&A panel. So what this is doing is using the natural language report designer within Power BI to, if whatever you type in here, it's going to rechart this based on your query. It takes a little bit of getting used to. If it doesn't, the things that it understands, it's underlined. If it doesn't understand something, there's a new feature that's coming out where you can wire. So let's say you call something, I don't know, something different within your organization. You can train this to understand what you mean when you say that particular word, and the graph would reflow. And just to give you an idea, it provides you some suggestions on what you can do to change that visualization. So some more advanced kind of tools that the team in our organization, or the Microsoft organization, has built. We've got some key influencers. So if with your marketing team and maybe some store managers, you might want it to break down within your different organizations, whether it be manufacturing, retail, hospitality, whatever industry you're in, that you can create and slice and dice data using these tools to build a picture of what's happening within your organization. So here we've got some market segments below and segmented out. We can drill down and we are filtering by which customer, the customer being male, what they're more likely to, when our customer is male, what's more likely to happen. And we can see here that segment 5 is a fairly sizable segment. With that, we can drill down, we can see what segment 5 consists of. So you can imagine trying to do this in Excel. It's probably very difficult, even with power pivots and things, or things like that. And what you've got to imagine, this is only a subset of the data, but you could have years of transactional data that you've brought into your model, and the more data you have, obviously, the more accurate, or the more insight you can gain from what's happening across your organization. So just think about this, the scale of this. This can handle big data. So we're talking millions or hundreds of millions of lines of transactions within an organization. And there's various tools that you can sort of supercharge that and get responses in kind of near real time kind of click through. So we can drill down and try and understand various different sections of this, and there's another one. I don't know why it's not showing. That's working. But there's a further kind of analysis thing on this in this section that you can kind of go through and visualize. It's quite powerful. And another one is a decomposition tree. So this is a new chart, and just to kind of illustrate this, I just want to try and reset the. That's probably why, because we've only selected a few stores. That didn't work. So we'll just reset it back to our total gross amount, or net amount, should I say. So the decomposition tree allows us to drill down into further detail of how this amount is derived. So, for example, we could say, okay, well, let's add the store to this, and therefore we can see that, and as we've seen earlier, that the Famous store is contributing the most to our net sales. But we might want to say, okay, well, the Van Arsdale store, what is the price range for that's contributed to that sale, and obviously in turn the total amount. So we can see that our premium product is performing very well, and is naturally correlating to contribute to the most of the sales. and then we could take it one step further and kind of see what products, and there again, it's a justification that our Power BI product is performing well, and we can see that it's flowing all the way through and performing well. And our Word product is lagging behind, so we might want to focus more attention on growing the Power BI product board further, or depending on your business strategy, you can start to get insight into the data. So now that we've kind of viewed the overall picture, maybe what we want to do is we're here with the returns meeting. So we want to drill through and drill down, should I say, to the return rate of our Power BI board, because we know from previous data that the Power BI board is doing well. So we've got there's no return rate. So what if we were to choose, if we're coming to returns and look at what is being returned across the stores the most, and we can see OneNote is performing very badly. We've got a high return rate. People don't like that. It's 100% return rate. So we could drill down through that into that and notice that within this period that we've got selected, our period down here, we've got a 24% return rate, which is our lowest period. But we've been speaking to production, and we've been speaking to the store managers, for example, and we've come up with a plan, and we know that we can reduce, or we want to analyze what if we could reduce the return rate down to below our average run. Maybe it's 10% or 8% or whatever our average return rate is, and so we can start to do some what if scenarios. So, and how this would affect the kind of bottom line. So let's say we reduced it down by 5%. This is going to indicate our uplift of our net sales, and probably more importantly, how that affects our bottom line. And we can see that we'll get a 25% profit increase straight to our bottom line. And that's kind of made up by each of these stores, being the Pomum store, where it's going to contribute the most to that. And this can kind of come across as quite complicated, but the DAX views that have kind of gone into creating this, the formulas behind this, it's not that complicated, because you can use the Power BI toolset to help you with this prediction. And more and more so, Power BI is coming with AI to help you generate these what if scenarios quite quickly and easily, using the AI mechanism within the Microsoft Azure and the Power BI stack. So we can see here that our net sales, and these are predicted net sales, so it's using a number of different variables to predict based on previous data, our what if scenarios, and so on and so forth. So we could take action on this data, and we could say, right, well, obviously in Jan we're going to need to stock up on this OneNote board, because that's when our predicted sales for Jan 2021, for example, are going to be high, and we want to start to reduce stock in March. You know, it might be seasonality or some other kind of demographic or something that's contributing to this shift. But it's a it's a powerful tool to walk through and to tell a story to the C-suite within your organization. And here we can see the contribution stacked of where that extra profit's going to come over time during the what if scenario. So we've run through that with the team, and now we want to engage with the store managers and try and understand how we can sort of in the front of house, how we can engage with them in our retail organization. So we can switch over to the basket analysis report, and this kind of gives us an analytical view of what's performing, of how your buyers are and what are people buying, and the relationships between that. There is the Microsoft team have built this button to open up a Power App, and Andy will go through this in more detail in the next demo. But for example, and unfortunately, when I click on this, I don't have an emulator on my phone emulator on my laptop. But you just use your imagination. There'll be a Power App running in here that the store managers could use, and it's all within the 365 tenant. So we're not going out and developing a native app to run on an Android or an iPhone. It's all within the Power App kind of ecosystem, and it's quite rapid, what's called low code, to develop this app. And the store manager you could imagine that there's the board, the Xbox One board on here with an order button and maybe a stock quantity button for that person to order more for their store. So with that, I'll switch back to the presentation, and Andy will take you on to the Power Apps demo.
All right. So hello again, everyone. Right, so Power Apps, what are they? That's a bit of a starting point for it. Well, the idea about Power Apps is Microsoft have decided that this is what they're going to be using for their sort of build your own application kind of environment. Now, I like to think of it really a lot like what you would have previously used like Access databases for, where you'd make your own little app where you'd have a form to just fill in all the details for it and have a sort of rapid development environment to do internal business applications. Now, with the sort of movement onto a sort of cloud environment, as you're seeing more and more these days, Access hasn't really been able to make that transition very well. And for a lot of them kind of things that you would have used it for previously, Microsoft are now pointing people in the direction of Power Apps. But Power Apps can be a lot more powerful than that as well, though. So the idea is, like it says on this slide, you can use it for making your own custom business apps. And the idea behind it is they like the phrase citizen developer, because it allows people who aren't developers to develop apps. It allows you to connect into your current data sources in lots of different ways, similar to with the Power BI and Power Automate. I didn't call it Flow. There's a lot of connectors that you can connect onto existing data sources. And it's also as well putting in all of this newfangled AI and machine learning ideas behind it as well, where you can sort of connect them into your own applications that you're writing yourself without needing to necessarily know all about like sort of AI and machine learning processes. So an example of that, I'm not going to show you that one, but we have previously done a little Power App that we put together, which looked at people's business cards, got the details off of that using machine learning, identified what was what on that card, and created a record in a spreadsheet for us to say who'd attended an event. Might be a while before we see that kind of thing again, but still. Okay, so moving on from there, let's have a quick look at some Power Apps. So again, I'm on my demo tenant here, and what we've got is a few example applications that we've made previously. So one of them is a sort of site inspection survey kind of thing that we might have. So what we have here, if I click on that, and this is mostly built from a template that you can get from Microsoft. So I'll show you where they live in a moment, but what I can do here is I've got an app. This is set up for a sort of mobile phone environment, and the idea would be on here if you had someone going onto site to do a piece of work where you wanted to take some images of that visit. So this might be a boiler inspection, it might be you're looking around a house as part of retail, yeah, you're doing like a house inspection, you're looking for damp and rot or whatever it may be. And what you can do on here is just go new and say what the inspection was. So we'll call it test inspection. And we could put in here, for example, the site. So it could be Dave's house.
Sorry, Andy. So this would be running on your mobile phone as well, would it?
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
can be running on a mobile, or it can be in any browser on whatever device that you like. There's a couple of different layouts you can have. So you can have one that's more sort of sideways on, sort of tablet-y kind of thing, and you can have a mobile variant as well. So the idea behind this app, as an example, would be you'd have somebody on site with a mobile, with a Power Apps app, which is just there in the Play Store or the iPhone store, whatever that's called, and you can just run this app natively on your phone. And you could say, for example, just go address 1, city, state, just to fill some boxes in on here, and you could add some photos, and this would use the camera on your phone, so you could take some pictures on your phone and upload them. Now this is just using a WhatsApp fake camera that I've got on this VM, and then that will go back and we can see that that's recorded that against in the app, and we've now been able to record that bit of data in a controlled, set up way, so we can say what kind of fields we want to record for this bit of work. And again, this is set up using one of the templates, and behind the scenes, that's using an Excel spreadsheet on someone's OneDrive as a data source. But you could have that connected into Microsoft's common data model, which is sort of like SQL without a server, and it's sort of stored all in the cloud, and all sorts of various other different connectors that you can use. So in theory, it is possible as well. Again, a lot of these to get started are really, really easy, and you can throw something together really quickly. Again, think of it like Access. You know, you can fairly quickly put together a basic database with one table in there and one form to just populate that, but it could be expanded to a huge sort of product, which is a sort of rapid development environment for your own internal business processes, whatever they may be. Behind the scenes, a bit of this that's based on Dynamics CRM, but I won't cover too much on that. Okay, so that's one example that we've got of an app on there, and I'll just show you quickly what the editing front end of it looks like. So if I wanted to change this, I just quickly just pressed edit on under the ellipsis there. It's a bit hard to see. And what that should do is load that up for me. While that's loading, I'll point out, to get to all of this, the website you want to go to is make.powerapps.com, and that's where all of this is exposed, how you get to this front end to get started with it. So this is loading that up. It was quicker when I looked at it before. And we can say, for example, just change this title on here. So instead of it being Seriun Site Inspection, we could call it Seriun Site Visit, or whatever it may be. And we can go through and we can rearrange the various elements on this page. So if I didn't want the title to be there and I wanted to swap its place with that, or change the font of this, so instead of it being that, it's in bold, then you can do quite easily. And it's the sort of similar sort of Office 365 environment where you've got the same sort of layout and look and feel that you're probably used to with all of these kind of things. Okay, and then what I can do is save that, and that will save the changes that I've made. So you can make small changes quite quickly on this and then publish that out to it. And you can share these apps depending upon the subscription level that you've got with your staff in a team or whatnot, and you can pass them out so that all of your site engineers, for example, could have an app that you could do these images for. So that's one example of the kind of things that you can do with these. Like Justin pointed out before, you could have it so it connected into your ERP. So you could have it so that you had like a quoting tool that you can have a little signature box on there and someone can sign it off, and you press save, and that would then go off and make a quote or a sales order if need be in your ERP application. Again, steps for that where it's possible. It can be a little bit complicated, so you might want to come to someone like us to go through and help you out with that. But there's a lot of functionality available for there. What I did want to show people though is the quickest and easiest way that I've found to get started with using Power Apps, and that is by there's a function in here for creating a app based upon a pre-existing bit of data. So a good example of this that I've got on here is, if you've got in your business a Excel spreadsheet that you're using for people's expenses, for example, and you wanted to be able to put that onto something that someone can use on their mobile in a much easier way to enter the form details and fill in what it is that they've done for their expenses, then by far the quickest way of doing it is if you go to New App and then Canvas. I won't touch too much on the difference of the different types, but still. And what you can do is say, I want to create an app. Oh, that's loading. There you go. And I'm going to use, in this case, I'll just use a spreadsheet that we've got on here, and we've got a expenses. I think it's travel actually in this case, but we can say this travel and that table in that spreadsheet. And what this is going to do is Power Apps is going to look at that Excel spreadsheet, determine what it needs to do with all of that data, and it's going to create for me a sort of mobile application that will fill in the data onto my spreadsheet for me. So I can do that on here, and there you go, it's decided to do it. Now this is all fictitious information, and it probably doesn't look very much like an expenses side of things, but we can call this expenses. And then once we've got that, we can then save this app. Assuming I haven't called something expenses example before, then what that should do is show me that in here. And very quickly, I've now made myself a mobile friendly web application where I can start to record my expenses just by clicking on that plus button and start putting this in. Not really expensive with bank account and card details, but you can see where this could go, where that could be a drop down of the type of expense that it is. So, you know, hotel, travel, whatever that may be, and any purchases that you've got related to expenses. Okay, so I think that's mostly what I wanted to show on there. Oh yeah, I did want to go through again just some of the sources, but I think I did that earlier. But all the different kind of things that you can connect to this as well. If we have a look at the data and the connections, so you can connect this to all sorts of things. So if you wanted to use this to look at data, so you might want to look and have a Power App, so when you're speaking to a customer, you can quickly see their last 10 orders or something along them lines when you're visiting somebody. Then you can connect it to all sorts of different things. So you can see on here you've got SQL Server, so if you've got an on-premise ERP that uses SQL Server, or you have Business Central, which is on the list on here, and also if you've got like Dynamics CRM, I think there's even connectors onto some other products as well, like Salesforce and various bits and pieces. There's my Business Central one. But yeah, you can connect it to loads of stuff. And if you can't connect it to it, there's probably some magic wizardry way of using REST and web APIs to be able to get that data out of it as well, if you are that way inclined. Okay, right. So I think that's now everything I wanted to show you on there. So I'll go back to Justin.
Thanks, Andy. So we've had a number of questions through, so we'll switch over to getting your questions answered. So the first one is back over to you, Andy.
Yeah, no worries. So Power Automate, is it available on premise? Well, it depends what you're looking at really on there. The idea with Power Automate is the actual functionality and everything's all on that web interface, but there are connectors that you can use. There's a thing called a on-premise data gateway, and what that allows you to do is on one of your servers somewhere or another, you can connect Power Automate to a on-premise data source, and then you can do stuff on there. So you can have it looking at files on a network, for example, on your G drive or whatever, and make it do stuff off of that. But the actual processing and everything's really dealt with in cloud. Okay.
So the next question is, can you automate Excel data into graphs? So I think the answer to this is yes. I think the general sort of consensus with charts and graphics within Excel is to have a data source or a sheet within Excel, and then have your chart that reflows accordingly. What you can do is you can also use a Power Query within Excel, which can query a database, excuse me, and and pull data out of other systems, connect into SQL, for example, or other ODBC connections. Pull the data in using Power Query, transform the data, store it in an Excel sheet, and then your graph would kind of update on that. And I think within Excel, if you hit the refresh button, the data refresh button, it goes off and it pulls data from your source and updates your application as that. Can I use Power BI for KPIs? Yes, most definitely. So Power BI, you can create a dashboard. You can publish that dashboard onto SharePoint or you can embed it into a web page. You can run that dashboard on a screen, for example, in your office or on your desktop of your team. The key thing here is understanding how do you derive your KPIs? Where does the information for those KPIs come from? From what system? And then obviously connecting Power BI to that data source, doing any transforming or logic on that data source, and then presenting the data in KPI format and using DAX to kind of understand the variance or deviance from your current your current performance or your current data set. So, for example, if it was sales, you could, and sales targets, you could have your target as a baseline and then have your current or your current run rate of sales per individual on a chart that shows you on a kind of gauge widget, let's say, or a gauge chart that shows you where your team is up to and where they have to hit that KPI. So it's very powerful. There are other systems out there for dashboards, but Power BI can most certainly be used for that. And obviously, you could do that anywhere because it's cloud-based. You could do that through the browser, on a mobile device or in any location. So interested in having more reports over Planner, maybe with Power BI. E.g., who has most tasks and who is completing tasks on time? So this is a great question. So as it stands today, I'm not aware of any out of the box connector to Planner. I think it might be coming from Microsoft. However, there are some kind of packs that you can purchase from third-party vendors that have created. There is one that I think Jordan will put on in the Q&A that has that connects to Planner. It's quite in depth. It has each section of the from a project management standpoint, and it plugs into Power BI quite well. I don't know what the cost is of that. I don't think they publish the cost on the on their site, but it just shows that there's a large ecosystem out there. So through the Microsoft, I think they've called it the App Source or something along those lines. There's a number of different applications, third-party applications that you can purchase. Some are free that you can plug into your environment and leverage it very rapidly. Oh, and I was going to do a Power Packs demo on that. I think we're tight for time, so I might skip that. If the person who answered that question wants to, if we haven't got the link on the Q&A, then I can run through that with you individually. Back to you, Andy.
All right, okay. So we've got on here about adding version tracking and approval chains to documents in Teams. Now, on this one, what you'd probably be better to look at really is the document storage behind the scenes in Teams is actually SharePoint. And to expose all of that, I don't really think there's a method of doing so directly in Teams. But if you want to look at the SharePoint document approval chain and process, that's where you'd be looking at for that. Okay.
So just talk about some upcoming sessions. for those of you who are interested and found this valuable, we are going to do an executive overview of the app collections in Microsoft 365. Microsoft to change the name from Office 365 to Microsoft to showcase that it's not just Office orientated apps anymore. It's a far bigger ecosystem or wider ecosystem. So please join us for that on the 4th of June, Thursday, the 4th of June, same time, same place. And that would be, it would be great to see you then. I am going to also be doing one. Are you doing this one, Andy?
With the executive overview.
I think it might be me and Mark doing this. We haven't decided yet, but hopefully we'll see you then.
For our regular visitors, I will just point out we are having a week off next week, so yeah, don't forget that one.
Yeah. So don't turn up next week on Thursday, because we're having a bit of a break. So the following on Thursday, the 11th of June, Mark and I will be presenting the Shadow IT and Data Security. So the kind of this is for, I guess, the target audience again might be C-suite or IT managers, and potentially even users within an organization. We're trying to steer away or support our IT managers out there and our kind of the directors to away from using sort of, I don't know, it might be if you're on a 365 tenant, you might have some users that are using Gmail or Dropbox or Citrix ShareFile or things
Trello.
like that. Trello, yeah, and we're trying to encourage that if you are utilizing the Microsoft 365 suite to keep that contained across your organization, and mainly that's for security. Well, starting off from security or what we call DLP or data loss prevention or leakage of data within your organization external to us. And how to protect against that and the mechanisms to help you achieve a kind of a managed approach to your data. So with that, we love to hear from you. So feedback. So any feedback would be fantastic. Mark's supposed to be doing the slide, but he's not here, so I'll do it. Any feedback would be great. And if you could, send an email to social@Seriun, that would be great. Whether it's positive or negative or what you want to see in the future. And we will try and kind of accommodate you on that. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time and thanks for joining us again. And we'll hopefully see you on the next one. And have a good rest of the day and great weekend. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.